What you got?
Yes, in the object.
Why are we sharing that and not sharing what I asked you to share? I asked you to share this. Thank you.
Let's go in there.
Everything goes there except for.
Why is my camera not there? There we are.
They don't have the people just have fantasy.
Okay, Evan, your coins.
Yeah, but.
You want that? Okay, excellent. What you got? Okay, that one is going to be a little. Oh, you have to be able to get out.
I don't think they need information.
So you can put-
It's my person.
The shade is.
Yeah. Without permission. That's my comment.
Small.
I woke up solid.
That was
solid.
That would be not bad.
Oh, you know, there's just, they don't care. No, they do. Oh, also, so, you know, like, yeah. There is a.
Where?
Chinese rip off. Oh my god. Yeah, there's a Chinese rip off of like, right, Chinese rip off like there. Since the Russian rip off of like a called I was. Then it's the Ukrainian rip off of the Russian rip off. Yeah, they Lego, the my would Ukrainian entirely.
And if you can do lyrics, this is my story, right? And then if you can live.
So rip off the Mario on the bottom was there. That's it. Again, my was doing a whole.
And that thing is why it's really handmade.
Yeah, it's like that.
You know what? Put your pretend right there. I'm going to show you on this thing. Okay. So you got your larynx right here. That's this nice hard structure. On top of it is your trachea. Below it is your esophagus. Just stick all three in that area. I've shown it to you, so that's good enough. I don't think we're gonna. Okay, she's done. Take her out. Yes, toss it outside. And if she's done, take her out. Let's put this. Put this up.
I'm so available.
Get this healed. That's the last thing you have to do, right? You can just scratch that in the left. Just scratch the symbol for mail or write the word mail. We know they're all terms, so you don't have to write those.
Oh, it's 13 with, yeah. 13 is the. Yeah.
It was the P. What's 13 was the P?
Right. And then. Which one is supposed to be it?
These two.
Yeah. We're on their side.
I got.
They're all, they're like the end of the term.
How old are they?
Just write term.
Every time I keep trying to call this in.
Oh, what is that for? Oh, it's an extra.
Why you just install this bad place? Still like. What's what you're saying?
Exactly.
Perfect. All right. Lisa. All right, Eunice, if you will, while he takes this outside. While he takes this outside, would you please gather up all the trash? Put it into the bag. Okay, there we go. And whatever doesn't fit, I'm gonna roll up in the tablecloth. Take those.
Yes, do you want your mother?
Yeah.
Almost. Yes, sir. All right, look at that.
I'm gonna find something around.
Yeah, there. I don't know. I will claim it.
How about it?
All right, so come on in, class. We did it. We survived. What do you know? Not fixed. Things definitely did not survive.
No. He got humiliated.
Well, that boy Pixar got humiliated because I went to being that much in the he was not loved. He was probably like, oh, I ever do this one.
Is that
shit's gonna shit?
He's like, you're gonna take this.
I'm proud of y'all. You still got okay. Let's close that down. Turn on air, so it's gonna get warm. Just put them up here.
Roast it.
Maybe put them up. Yeah, sure. It'll work.
It's a crazy thing to say.
All right, I'm gonna crank some air down now that the pigs are all outdoors for the remainder of our time. Congrats, you did it. I'm proud of you. Nobody threw up. Good. Very good. So, huh?
I have a strong appetite.
Yeah, strong appetite. Yeah, okay. I bet. Yes.
Go put the pigs on standby load.
That would terrify my neighbors, I'm sure.
Yeah, well.
I'm surprised I have not been kicked out of this bougie neighborhood already. It's a matter of time. It is a matter of time before somebody goes, that lady has to go.
You might be the low poop.
Oh, I know. Mm-hmm. That weird libertarian homeschooling lady that cuts up pigs in her garage. Okay. Mm-hmm.
My friend lives in this neighborhood.
Oh, yeah. A lot of people do. It's huge. Anyway. All right. Good job. Yeah. No modesty for the pigs. No being gentle with their bits. You just kind of snatch them out. Everybody.
Man, what's that smoke coming from? Oh, it's just the 50 dead animals.
Still pigs.
My basement.
You know, it's all right. When you come here, you expect weirdness. That's how I roll. All right. Today's lesson is fun. Okay. I love this lesson. This is a really good one. And it has my favorite ever YouTube video to show my students because it's the strangest YouTube video of all time. And I love it. So we're talking today about birds and mammals. So we have reached basically the peak of our evolutionary climb here. We've gone from our little single-celled organisms, and we've gone through plants, and then we've gone through insects and things of that sort, and arthropods and jellies and all those things, and we've gotten ourselves to our most complex higher organisms. So anybody know what he is? He's a meerkat. Anybody ever watch Meerkat Manor when it was on TV? Hilarious. They basically just put cameras at a meerkat den or whatever and gave them personalities and watched it. It was entertaining. All right, so now next week your Q4 packets are going home. All right, and things are going to be a little different. Your homework for Q4 is very different from anything you have done so far. So I'm telling you now, and I will tell you again next week. We want to make sure everybody knows. You have one homework assignment for Q4, one, but it is long. It covers the entire quarter, and it's broken into weekly chunks. I'm not grading it every week. You're turning it into me one time. So it's your job to keep up with it. You're going to be creating a life-size model of your body, which includes all of your major organ systems. What we will do is next week before we leave class, you're going to get like a 7x3 foot roll of paper. Everybody's going to lay down and everybody's going to let somebody else trace their body on this paper. And you're laying in a very specific position when you are traced. And then you're going to take it home with you along with this packet that goes with the Q4 packet. And this packet has all of these outlined organs, systems, bones, all of these things, right? And you're going to cut, color, and apply them to your model body. Half of you will be skeletal, like another half of you will have muscles. There are some points where like you have to attach one side but not another because I need to be able to like open a flap and look behind it, this sort of thing. So you'll be working through all of that on your own. It's due May 12th. So that means that you have to remember to do it every week as you go along. If you don't, you're going to be scrambling starting like May 10th when you, you know what I mean? So do it every week as we go. You're also getting a little booklet that goes with it. And the booklet will have in it what you're going to do for the writing part of the assignment. So you will be saying things like, here it says digestive and excretory system, your organ is the mouth. So you'll be saying things like mechanical, teeth, chemical, saliva breakdown of food, also speech, breathing, taste. Notable structural features would be specialized teeth, salivary glands, taste buds, hard and soft palate, stuff like that. When you turn them into me, your booklet is worth a test grade. Your model body is worth a test grade. Okay, so that's how your homework's going to be. Yes.
Is there a big design?
Basically, this is the assignment. Like, there's not really so much a rubric for it because it's like complete the book, make the body, and it'll walk you through what you're supposed to do. It'll have a system every week, and you'll have a whole packet, and you'll just find that system in the packet, cut, color, stick. I still laugh because one of my fastest students, yes, did his entire digestive system upside down, and it was brilliant. Did you have a question, Isabella? If you finish early, you absolutely can turn it in early. I won't grade it till I grade everybody else's, but you can get it out of your way. So I do have a pro tip for you. It's easier to put it somewhere and leave it there instead of rolling it up every week when you're not using it. I suggest taping it to the back of your closet door because there it exists. Like, just get some masking tape, tape it to your closet door, color your stuff, and then go and just stick it on. That way you don't have to roll. Every time you roll it up, it's going to get jacked up a little more. So if you can find a place to put it that's safe, do it there. All right, so y'all found your homework assignment, and I will be grading that. I've already put in this week's email that you can expect me to take longer to do the grading, not only because this homework assignment was more involved, but I have to grade your lab practical pigs, and I have to check last week's homework because some of that took longer for people. And I have to go back to my oral surgeon at 3:30 today to get a checkup. So it may be tomorrow before all that's graded, but it will get done. All right, so we're going to talk about response first. Oh, that's what they're famous for, that breed, isn't it? Right? Chihuahuas, adorable and vicious. So how animals respond. So most animals have evolved specialized nervous systems that enable them to respond to the events around them. Nervous systems are composed of specialized nerve cells or neurons. The structure of neurons enables them to receive and pass on information. And when they work together, they acquire information from their surroundings, interpret that, and then decide kind of what to do about it. Your nervous system will. So we have different kinds of stimuli. Y'all have heard of, taste, touch, smell, sound, but we also have vestibular. This is your balance sense. Proprioception, where you are in space. Like, until I say these words, your butt is on a surface. You probably did not realize your butt is on a surface. But now that I'm saying it, you're aware that your butt is on a surface, aren't you? Oh, yeah, because your brain forgot that for a minute because it wasn't important. But like, if a fan was blowing on you, you would probably be aware of it until your brain decided to feed that stimuli out. Like, I don't really need to know this anymore. It's not changing, right? So all those kinds of things. Proprioception for flipping, flying, cartwheeling, all those kinds of things. And then interoception, sorry, is like when you can feel like your tummy grumbles or you have pain inside your body, those type of stimuli. Okay, that's stimuli coming from inside your body. So information in the environment that causes a reaction is a stimulus, right? Stimuli would be plural. And this can be in the form of chemicals in the air, water, light, or heat, sound, all of these things, right? Animals' ability to detect stimuli depends on specialized cells called sensory neurons. Each type of sensory neuron responds to a particular stimulus, such as light, heat, or chemicals. So for example, in your fingertips, you have sensory neurons for heat, for pain, for pressure. You can feel all of that, right? But there are other parts of your body. I'll be real specific. Here's one. Your rectum, once you're inside your rectum, there's no pain receptors in your rectum, but there are pressure receptors in your rectum. There's no need for a pain sensor there, but you need pressure, right? You need to know when there's a reason for there to be pressure there. So different sensory neurons in different places. And then the distribution of those neurons too. Like in your fingertips, you have a whole lot more sensory neurons than maybe you do like in, certain parts of your other parts of your arm or your head or your ear. Other things are not as sensitive. Your mouth is full of sensory receptors. Like, if you have the tiniest little cut or sore in your mouth, it feels huge, right? This tooth that they removed, it feels that big. It is not, it is this big, but it feels like there's a huge cavern in my face, right? Because everything is so sensitive in there. So humans share many types of sensory cells with other animals, and for that reason, many animals react to stimuli that humans notice, like light, taste, odor. Like last night, there was thunder and Ozzy was panicking because he can hear that too, right? And then many animals have types of sensory cells that humans lack, or they are certain senses are more amplified. Compound eyes, like when you think about flies, dragonflies, things like that, all of those compound eyes, they don't see, like if you look at them, you see all those little tiny hexagon shaped lenses, and you look and you think, well, they must see 400 of the same image, but they don't. They only see this very narrow frame, and then they combine that image. But their vision is not as acute as ours, but because of how it functions, everything is slower, if that makes sense. They process more quickly. So if you're coming to swat a fly, it is roughly, this is the estimate, 4 times slower for the fly than it is for you, which is why it's so hard to swat them. Because for them, you're coming at them like this, but it's 4 times slower to them. So it gives them time to respond. Isn't that wild, though? That's kind of crazy to think. So that's one reason why some animals respond to stimuli that humans cannot detect. Things like magnetic fields. Cows in fields tend to sort of orient themselves magnetically. Also, weirdly enough, not every time, but if you take the vast average, I would love to know who did this study. When dogs circle to poop, have you seen them do this? They circle to poop. They very frequently will orient their noses to the north. Why? I'm not sure we know why, and I'm not sure who did that study and watched hundreds of dogs poop. Somebody did. Somebody decided that was going to be their research. You know what? I could research anything. I'm going to research dog pooping. So, whatever it is, it's your thing, it's your thing. So how do we process information? Sensory neurons are going to detect that information, and they're going to pass it to other nerve cells, and we call those interneurons because they're in between. And then interneurons are going to process it and determine how an animal responds to stimuli. So in our case, we have a central nervous system. Obviously, not all organisms have that. The number of interneurons an animal has and the way those interneurons process information determine how flexible and complex an animal's behavior can be. Some invertebrates, like cnidarians and worms, have very few interneurons, and they're capable of only simple response to stimuli. If you touch a worm, it's going to curl away from you. It doesn't have the whole ability to decide, well, I'm going to fight. You know what I mean? Like, that's not a thing. So it's just going to respond very basically. Vertebrates have more highly developed nervous system with a large number of interneurons that are capable of more complex behaviors than most invertebrates. And then your brain is formed by many of those interneurons. And that's why behaviors of vertebrates can be more complex than those of invertebrates. So a specific reaction to a stimulus is called what? Claire? A response, yes. So that's one of the hallmarks of a living organism. It responds to stimuli. So a stimuli elicits a response. Very good. And when animals respond to a stimulus, body systems, including sensory neurons, nervous systems, muscles, work together and generate a response. Have you ever dropped something really hot in the kitchen and your dog goes for it and you're like, oh, and you're going, hot, 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 hot. They don't understand it, but they put it in their mouth and you watch them spit it out real fast. It's not like he decided this was too hot. That's the same thing that happens like if you touch a hot stove. His body reacted to spit out whatever it was. Same way you would recoil if you touched a hot surface. Responses to many stimuli are directed by the nervous system. Those responses are carried out by cells or tissues that are not nerve cells. For example, a lion's decision to lunge at prey is carried out by muscle cells. And nerve cells called motor cells carry directions from interneurons to muscles. Other responses to environmental conditions may be carried out by other body systems like respiratory and circulatory systems. And then we have trends in nervous system evolution. So animal nervous systems exhibit different degrees of cephalization and specialization. Cephalization would be concentrating all of your nervous stuff in a head, basically making a brain, right? So if you look here, there's an anemone, a sea star, a flatworm, a squid, an earthworm, and a human. And you can see we get a little more complex as we get down here, and certainly most complex by the time we get to the human, right? So invertebrate nervous systems range from simple collections of nerve cells to complex organizations that include lots of interneurons. This is a crayfish nervous system, and one of my best friends in college spent her entire senior year basically mapping out the crayfish nervous system. She went through a lot of crayfish, let me tell you. A whole lot of
culling crayfish. We'll use the nice word, culling at crayfish, and which is killing them, and then removing their nerve cord and all these ganglion that they had, and then staining and following all these different little pathways that they made. It was impressive. She did a lot of work, and she did go into neurobiology. She has a MD PhD in neurobiology. Cnidarians such as jellyfish jellies have simple nervous systems called nerve nets. Those are when you have just some neurons connected like a little net and they just sort of talk to each other, but there's no like central base, right? Other radially symmetrical invertebrate like sea stars, they tend to have like that nerve ring. We talked about how sea stars have a nerve ring. So it kind of loops around, so it's all talking to each other. And others have interneurons grouped together into structures called ganglia. These are ganglia or ganglion as a singular. And it's just kind of where they bundle together, right? So heads and brains, we get a little more evolved as we go. So this would be like a primitive fish brain, like a dogfish shark brain. And like here's a reptile brain, a bird, small mammal, and then a horse brain. So you can see we're getting more and more complex as we go. And a lot of the same structures are present, but they kind of start to serve more of a specific purpose. So if you're talking about bilaterally symmetrical animals, which is pretty much everything listed, so fish, arthropods, right, mammals, bilaterally symmetrical, no longer radially symmetrical. These guys tend to have a head, right? I can't think of any bilaterally symmetrical organism that doesn't have a head of some sort. Meaning that you could divide it this way, like fold it in half like a paper doll, and you'd have the same on both sides, as opposed to radially symmetrical, like a starfish where the symmetry comes from the center.
A starfish technically also.
Yeah, because they have 5 arms. So you,
Fold in half.
not if you fold it in half, you're going to have 2 legs sticking off. Yep, they really are. If it was 6, maybe it would be different, but they're radially symmetrical. Their symmetry comes from the middle, like a sea urchin or a jelly. Yep. So interneurons form ganglia in several places, and the largest ganglia is typically located in the head region called cerebral ganglia. Some species, cerebral ganglia, are further organized into a structure called a brain. So we saw that little crayfish tail, those little knots of nerves, those are basically your ganglia, and those sort of evolve over time in higher organisms into a brain. So brains of some cephalopods, like octopi, for example, enable complex behavior, including learning. So then when we talk about chordates specifically, non-vertebrate chordates, which have no vertebrate type head as adults, still have cerebral ganglion. So these are your things like your agnathans, really. And then vertebrate chordates show a high degree of cephalization and have highly developed nervous systems. So by the time you have got yourself a backbone, you've got a very highly developed nervous system. And vertebrate brains are formed from many interneurons within the skull. And the interneurons are connected with each other and with other sensory neurons and motor neurons in the head and elsewhere in the body. Human brain has more than 1 billion nerve cells. That's a lot. So different parts of the brain. So here are different brains, different organisms, different parts. You can see how those different parts are situated differently in different organisms. So regions of the brain include cerebrum, cerebellum, medulla oblongata, optic lobes, and olfactory lobes. The cerebrum is what part of the brain? Your thinking part of your brain, right? So it serves to interpret sensory information, determines response. It's involved in learning, memory, conscious thought. You are using your cerebrum right now. You can refer to a smart or a thinking person as a cerebral person, right? What's the cerebellum do, Caitlin?
Coordinates movement.
Yes, this is your balance. Coordinates movement and controls balance. And it's at the in your human brain, it's down here. It's this thing at the base of the brain. And this is the stuff you're not consciously thinking about, right? But it is involved in coordination. I had a friend who picked up a cat once, a stray cat, and it had some cerebellum damage. I think it was some sort of a stroke or something, maybe. But it walked like it was drunk all the time because it could not coordinate its movement. It didn't survive very long, but they had it for several months and tried to nurse it back to health. But it literally was like a drunk cat. Like it could barely put one foot in front of the other, and it's like woo, all over because it has no control. So what do the optic lobes do? Optic would do, Isabella? That's your vision, correct? And then your olfactory bulbs would do what then, Colin? Smell. Very good. All right. So vertebrate brains are connected to the rest of the body by a thick collection of nerves called a spinal cord, which runs through the tube in the back of the vertebral column. So brain evolution in vertebrates follows a general trend of increasing size and complexity from fishes through amphibians, through reptiles to birds to mammals. Just like all of the other structures have pretty much gotten more complex as we've gone. Most certainly the brain. In fishes, amphibians, and reptiles, the cerebrum or thinking region is pretty small. You ever heard the term bird brain? Although they can do a lot, like birds can respond, birds can mimic sounds, they can mimic songs, they can do all kinds of stuff. In birds and mammals, and especially in primates, the cerebrum is much bigger as you move along. So birds is still smallest of this group. So you've got birds, mammals, and then primates, and we get bigger, bigger, and bigger. So of these vertebrates, the birds are the smallest, which is where bird brain comes from. The cerebellum is also most highly developed in birds and mammals. Think about it. If you're flying, if you're diving to get food, if you're perching on branches, if you're acting like a hummingbird, which is like, can stick its little tongue in this tiny little feeder and then zip, 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 zip. That takes a lot of coordination. So that's all cerebellum. And brains of chickadees are so sophisticated that the part responsible for remembering locations gets bigger when the bird stores food in the fall. When the winter comes, tiny bird is better able to find hundreds of storage places. In the spring, its brain returns to normal size. Brains are plastic. Especially while you're still young, your brains are very plastic, which means you can change the way you think. You can learn new things. You can be more flexible in your learning. You can build more neural connections at your age. And even as adults, but at your age, it's a little more flexible even still. But brains are plastic. You're not set in stone, right? You can learn new things. So we have different sensory systems. The more complex an animal's nervous system, the more developed its sensory system. So you got everything ranging from individual sensory neurons that sense organs that both contain sensory neurons and other cells that help gather information. And then you have invertebrate sense organs. And in invertebrates, you've got sense organs that detect light, sound, vibrations, movement, body orientation, chemicals in the air or water. And invertebrate sense organs can vary widely in complexity and just based on what you're dealing with. So like our flatworms, remember our planaria, they had those little eye spots that could detect the presence of light. That's a great example. And then more cephalized invertebrates, so think octopi, squid, things of that sort, they tend to have more specialized sensory tissues, more well-developed sense organs. Some cephalopods, like octopuses, have eyes that can detect motion and color. Interesting thing. So development matters, right? Everything from embryonic development to your adult stage matters. And there are certain points in development where an organism has to have certain sensory input in order to develop the sense organ properly. If you blind an octopus, like even if you just cover its eyes at a certain point in its, very early development, and then later remove the blindfold or whatever you've used, it still will not see. It will be blind because it did not get the sensory input necessary to build the functional sensory organ. Like the DNA is patterned to build it, but it's kind of like trees that don't get wind. If trees don't get pushed around by wind, they're not strong. They need the wind to push them. Same thing like with this tooth I have up here, because this tooth is missing. If I don't replace this tooth up here will fall out because it has nothing to push against it. It has no way to gain strength, to force it to tighten up in the jaw. So everything matters. That's why bite matters. That's why orthodontist spends so long like adjusting your bite. It's not about cosmetics. It's about making sure that everything functions properly. So chordate sense organs, non-vertebrate chordates have a few specialized sense organs, tunicates, sensory cells, and their siphons, stuff like that. Lancets have cerebral ganglion, but most vertebrates have highly evolved sense organs, and many vertebrates have sense organs for taste, smell, and hearing. Like you can do that, so can a bird, right? So can a reptile, have all of those same. Although mammalian ears tend to have some basic parts, they differ in their ability to detect sound. Bats and dolphins can find objects in their environment using echoes of their own high-frequency sounds, right? They can do echolocation. Many species of fishes, amphibians, reptiles, and mammals have color vision that is good or better than that of humans. So, like the fastest visual input, one of the organisms with the fastest visual input is dragonflies. If you've ever watched how they move, that makes perfect sense. Whereas ours is maybe more acute, but not nearly as acute as a falcon that can see a mouse hundreds of feet down, right? You can't see that. There's no way you could see that, but they can see that. And our color receptors are different depending on like our visual spectrum, our Roy G. Biv, our UV spectrum that we can see. There are plenty of organisms that can see ultraviolet. A lot of insects can see ultraviolet. Pollinators can see ultraviolet. We don't see it, but they see different colors there. So other organisms can see outside of what we call the visible spectrum of light because it's visible to them and it's not visible to us because their sensory cells are different than ours, which is really kind of weird when you think about it. Like your dog does not see the world you see. The birds do not see the world you see. It looks very different to them because their sense organs are different. So some species, including certain fishes, duck-billed platypus, can detect weak electric currents in the water. Some animals like sharks can use an electric sense to navigate and use Earth's magnetic field. Then there are other electric fishes that can create their own electrical currents using electric pulses to communicate with each other. So lots of different abilities for different. Now, movement and support. This graceful dog was probably trying to catch a ball, but it didn't go out so well. So what are our types of skeletons? We have three main types of skeletons. Drew?
Endoskeletons, exoskeletons, and
hydrostatic. Yep, good. So hydrostatic would be in like your jellies and things of that sort, right? And also maybe in sea stars too. They use like hydraulic pumps that they have that water vascular system to move around in. And then exoskeletons would be like, what's an example? Any arthropod, anything like that. Endoskeletons are all of us that don't see our skeletons unless we're looking at x-rays. Or your teeth, that's really kind of like some people say that's the part of your skeleton you can see. Because when you become a skeleton, you do see your teeth, though they're not really bones, but still. So to move efficiently, all animals have to do two things. They have to generate a physical force, and then they must somehow apply that force to the environment, be it water, air, or a surface to push against. So you have to create a force and push it against something. So their animal's ability to move efficiently is greatly enhanced by rigid body parts. So legs push against the ground, wings push against the air, that sort of thing. Fins push against water. So hydrostatic skeletons, like I said, are for these types of organisms. Invertebrates like cnidarians, annelids, this type of thing. These have these fluid skeletons in a gastrovascular cavity. It's basically water pressure, right? That's kind of how they keep their bodies moving. So when a hydra closes its mouth, the cells encircling its body wall constrict, the animal elongates, and the tentacles extend. Because water's not that compressible, constricting the cavity elongates the animal. So that's how they stretch. They take in more water, they seal off, they've stretched out. If they want to sort of collapse, they just let out some water, right? Kind of deflate. So when it comes to exoskeletons, you've got a lot of arthropods and mollusks with exoskeletons. Exoskeletons are your external skeletons, typically made of chitin. Where else do we find chitin? In what? Yep, mushrooms, there you go. Fungus in general. Mollusks with two-part shells are called what? That's one type of one. Oh, I was going, yeah, bivalves. There you go. Bivalves, that's what you want. Those are those guys. That's a skeleton for them. They're little shells, right? Bivalves, such as clams, close their shells to avoid drying out. Exoskeletons do have some disadvantages, though. So an exoskeleton poses a problem when the animal needs to grow. To increase in size, arthropods break out of their shells. What do we call this when they do this? When an arthropod breaks out of its shell, sorry. Isabel again? Molting, there you go. What's this? We've all seen them. What is it? Cicada. It's a cicada shell, right? Yep. I used to collect them as a kid, and then I would line them up like they were going to have a big battle, like like armies that would face them to each other. I was such a weird kid. Anyway, yeah. So another disadvantage is that they have is that they're heavy, right? The larger an arthropod gets, the heavier their skeletons become in proportion to their body weight. So then we have endoskeletons. So echinoderms and vertebrates, some echinoderms like our, most of them, but like our sea urchins, for example, this is what we're going to call an endoskeleton, right? So endoskeletons is a structural support system within the body. Sea stars have it too. They move using like a water vascular system, but they do have this endosskeleton because they do have that calcified skeleton. You've seen a dried starfish, right? A sea star. You can get them at, when you go to Savannah, they're in the tourist shops. Yeah, those, right? And vertebrates have an endoskeleton made of cartilage and a combination of cartilage and bone. And we know that sharks and rays are entirely cartilage, right? And then vertebrate exoskeletons have evolved a wide range of forms, enabling them to swim, fly, burrow, crawl, walk, all of these different things, depending on what the animal itself does. Then we have joints. We can flex, we can extend, and this can happen with arthropod skeletons and with endoskeletons. So with a little arthropod skeleton, they still have little flexor and extensor situations like we do, but their little joints are on the outside, whereas our little joints are on the inside. In invertebrates, bones are connected at joints using connective tissues called ligaments. That's what we have in vertebrates, right? In vertebrates, not in invertebrates. And most joints are formed by a combination of ligaments, cartilage, lubricating joint fluid. That's how we move. So muscles tend to work in pairs, and we'll be talking about this more when we get into our human anatomy, but we tend to have one flexor, one extensor. So when one contracts, the other will extend, and then the opposite occurs when you extend that muscle. So flex and extend, they tend to work in pairs. And then arthropod muscles are attached to the inside of their skeleton, and vertebrate muscles are attached to the outside of a bone. So you can see in this little arthropod, this is where the little muscles attach inside of their skeleton. But if you've ever eaten a crab or a lobster, you're eating their muscle just like you would if you were eating a chicken or a cow. Same kind of deal, right? So then we have muscular and skeletal systems that work together, right? And these can be very, very complex, and it depends on the organism, what it does, how it's organized. Here you can see certain muscle groups in different primates and sort of where they are situated, how they perform, right? So limbs of many modern amphibians and reptiles stick out sideways from their body. We talked about this, reptile hip versus bird hip, right? As though the animals were doing push-ups. Many use sideways movements of their backbone to move their limbs forward. You've seen like a lizard, they move like that, right? They kind of shake their hips as they go. Snakes do the same thing. Whereas like, we don't do it quite that way. So you can see here, this is like a sprawling stance. This is what we call an erect, and this is what we call pillar erect. And you can see right here versus right here where the hip joints are. In the erect, you've got your hip comes in the joint kind of like so, right? Like here's your cup and your hip joint goes here. But in the pillar erect, it's like all completely on top, underneath like that, on top and underneath. So most mammals stand with their legs straight under them when they walk on two legs or on four. Mammalian limbs have evolved in many ways that enable different kinds of movement. The shapes and relative positions of bones and joints are closely linked to the jobs they perform. So now we talk reproduction briefly. Yep, that's a fun one. I like that slide. Drew does not approve. It's one of those. Whoop, that was in the background, huh? So asexual reproduction requires only how many parents? One parent, right? So you got one parent. So you've got a single parent's DNA, which means you're lacking genetic diversity, right? But there's this crazy thing that can happen in certain species, like these lizards, I can't speak. These lizards and some cnidarians are going to do this fabulous deal called, some cnidarians are going to do budding, for example, but some lizards are going to do a really cool thing called parthenogenesis. Okay, this is wild. Do what? Cnidarians? No, there's a so parthenogenesis is basically cloning. It's asexual reproduction, but it requires a partner to stimulate the ovulatory process. So two female lizards will engage in a they're lesbian, like people will joke they're lesbian lizards. They kind of, except their reproduction actually occurs, which isn't going to be possible for humans that do this. So anyway, they basically one female lizard will engage in a copulatory routine ritual with another female lizard, just like you would see a male and a female lizard doing. And they'll engage in this routine together, and that will somehow stimulate one or both of them to ovulate, but they're ovulating basically clones. Like they're diploid. They're not going to be a haploid because they're producing an organism with a full set of chromosomes. So it's kind of wild, but it does not happen in higher organisms. It happens only in like reptiles and stuff. You're not going to see this in mammals, this kind of thing. This is like a very primitive pseudo copulation, they call it. But it works because if you're in a situation where there just aren't enough dudes around, you know, go little lizards, go. So every night is ladies' night, is what we say for these guys. So sexual reproduction, obviously, you're going to have two parents. Now you're getting mixing of DNA, you're getting genetic variation. Genetic diversity is the raw material on which what concept is going to operate. We need genetic diversity for evolution. Yes, we do. We need genetic diversity for evolution. The species that are just cloning themselves, yeah, they'll have mutations from now and then, and they will definitely evolve, but nowhere near as rapidly or as efficiently as organisms that are going to reproduce, sexually. So sexual reproduction requires two individuals of different sexes, so the density of a population must be high enough to allow mates to find each other. In most animal species that reproduce sexually, each individual is either male or female. Among annelids, mollusks, and fishes, you can have what? Not in mammals, but in these other organisms, you can have what we would call hermaphrodite, which means they have both male and female sex organs or sex gametes, really. So clownfish can actually change sex as they mature. But when you get into higher organisms like mammals, that doesn't happen. Your biology stays your biology. But as in these guys can flippy flop it. They're like, woo, all right, this is going to work differently today.
You can call them morphodites too.
Yeah, clownfish, because they change. Yep. So reproductive cycles are going to be different. There's a number of invertebrates that have cycles that alternate between sexual and asexual reproduction, like some parasitic worms and cnidarians are going to alternate between those two different forms of reproduction throughout their life cycle. So they will reproduce sexually and then asexually, depending on where they are in their life cycle. So there are cnidarians that are going to alternate between their polyp and medusa form, and then their like jellyfish form. So this is the polyp form, the medusa form is the jellyfish form, and they will undergo different types of reproduction during those different stages of their life. So how do these compare when we're looking at them? Asexual reproduction requires one parent. Super convenient, right? So if conditions are favorable, you can just keep asexually reproducing all day long and you'll be fine. But as soon as conditions change, as soon as the environment change, now you have a problem. Because if you are not suited to that change, you're going to die off and so are all your progeny because you have no diversity. So that's where sexual reproduction comes in. So you can see a good little Venn diagram. So oviparity versus viviparity. Animals show different methods of producing young ones, oviparous and viviparous. What does oviparous mean? Oviparity. Caitlin.
Species in which embryos develop eggs outside of the parent's body.
There you go. So oviparous. Paris would be parity in general. That term is also used in obstetrics. They'll use the term para, and it means like how many have you had? Like it would be G2P2. Like I'm G2P2. I've gestated 2 babies. I have 2 live children. G2P2. That's where the para comes in. Gravida is the other one. That means pregnancy, gravida. So viviparity, if oviparity means you bear your eggs in your young in eggs, then viviparity would be what? Jordan? Yeah, like mammals, live young. Most mammals, yes, live young. So oviparous animals bear their young in eggs. Viviparous animals have young animals that develop inside their mother and are born not in an egg, right? All right, so some animals have metamorphosis. You guys know this. You've seen this many times. Here's your little froggy life cycle. Aren't they cute? They develop little legs as they go. Here's your butterfly. This is for stuff like insects, fish, amphibians, crustaceans, cnidarians, echinoderms, tunicates, things like this. This is not for, again, when you get into your higher organisms, your birds, your reptiles, your mammals. So we have amniotic eggs. That's what we are incubating up there in the front, are amniotic eggs. They have an amniotic cavity, right? And then they have a little embryo developing in there. Now, I will candle your eggs sometime in the next few days. And any that are not fertilized, we will pitch off to the side. Any that are fertilized will remain to continue incubating. But if you shine a light through those little quail egg shells, and I'll get pictures for you, you should be able to see whether or not there's a little embryo developing in there. So this is the distinguishing characteristic of an amniote is it's a shelled egg with an amniotic membrane and it allowed organisms to venture onto land. So what's the innermost membrane called? Do we see that one? That's going to be, oops, sorry, that's the same thing we just said. That's going to be your amnion. That's your inner membrane. You can almost think of it, it's like the amniotic sac that we have in mammals. It holds the little developing embryo, right? And exchange of oxygen and carbon dioxide between the embryo and the egg's internal environment. That's going to be going through what we call the chorion. That's this right here. We have a chorion in a placenta too, in a higher developed organism. And the membrane in an egg that stores nitrogenous wastes produced by the embryo, that's going to be the allantois. So that's this down in here. This is where the waste goes. And then a mammal that lays eggs and has a single urogenital and digestive orifice, only echidnas and platypuses. What do we call these? Does anybody know? We're going to talk about these today. These are our monotremes. These are our mammals that are egg-laying mammals. We've only got the 2 types. So placentas, this is what mammals have, right? Well, most mammals, not all, placental mammals in particular. This is what we have, right? And this is characterized by the presence of a placenta, which is this vascular organ. Okay, female organisms that are placental mammals grow an organ every time they're pregnant. You grow not just a whole offspring, not just a fetus, a baby, an embryo. You actually grow a placenta. So you build an organ all on your own. So none of you dudes are going to be able to say you're building organs later in life. You have the organs you have. Some of us in this room will be building organs. And it's pretty wild to think that you're building an entire organ to support an organism. It's pretty neat, right? So placentals include all living mammals except marsupials and monotremes, which we will be talking about. The whole purpose of a placenta is exchanging of oxygen and nutrients to the developing fetus, but also keeping a blood barrier between the mother and the fetus, which is important because if the fetus's cells, which are not the same as the mother's, right? Because you're a new organism, completely new DNA, the mother's immune system will be like, what is that? That's not me. And it could attack it. So a placenta actually keeps that barrier in place. It's pretty cool. So although some authorities consider marsupials to be placental animals, their placenta is so underdeveloped that we really kind of were like, we kind of call them non-placental mammals. Mammary glands are another distinctive characteristic of mammals. This comes from the Latin word mamma, which means breast. So that's where you get mammary gland, mammal, mammogram. It's all the same word, right? So functionally, and this is fascinating, these are the organs that produce milk for young, right? Functionally, mammary glands produce milk, but structurally, what do you think they're modified from? Does anybody know? They're modified sweat glands. That's how we develop mammary glands, from sweat glands. And if you look at the most primitive of our mammals, which are our egg-laying mammals, platypus is a great example. Does a platypus have teats? Anybody ever wondered?
No, I haven't searched that up.
No teats on a platypus. The platypus mama extrudes milk she kind of almost sweats it. She extrudes milk onto her abdomen and her babies lick it off. It just oozes out of her skin, just like sweat oozes out of yours. So that's how they do it. And then in other organisms like dogs, cats, cows, primates, whatever, we have teats or whatnot for babies, right? To eat on. Oops, no, go away. All right, so interrelationship of body systems. I know I found great photos for this slideshow.
But it's spread out.
Dude, she is hanging on there. She is eating her snack. So all body systems work together to maintain homeostasis. So this is obviously, control of internal conditions, keeping everything level. We love homeostasis. Wildebeest brain cells, like those of humans, must be kept at a stable temperature and supplied with a steady stream of glucose for energy. The brain cells must also be bathed in a fluid that is a constant concentration of water and cleanse of metabolic waste products. So failure of homeostasis, or even for a few minutes, can lead to brain death or injury. Like, we have to have homeostasis. And obviously this is going to involve all of your systems to have homeostasis in place. And your body systems should work together to fight disease. They will be impacted. My example this week is my father's been in the hospital since Thursday. He's having pulmonary problems, but they are causing cardiac problems. So he's having breathing problems, and that is causing heart problems because one system is failing. He's technically in respiratory failure right now. Doesn't that sound scary? They think they can pull him out of it. But anyway, he's struggling to breathe and struggling to stay oxygenated because they think he has an infection. But because of that, it's putting extra strain on his heart. So now his heart is showing strain because if one system fails, another system's going to get impacted. So they all kind of have to work together for it to work. You've got chemical controls, you've got your whole endocrine system, all of these neurotransmitters. There are entire courses in college that'll be nothing but neurotransmitters day in and day out. Take cell communication. You will talk of all the neurotransmitters. It will be hours and hours of it. Trust me. Free serotonin, all that good stuff, right? Mammals, like other vertebrates, have endocrine glands that are part of an endocrine system. So hormones are your messengers within your body, right? We have to control our body temperature. We know that some things, invertebrates, fish and reptiles, amphibians, these are our ectotherms, right? And then we have endotherms who are going to keep their body temperature regulated, at least in part. And we can do that in different ways. We tend to have, fat for insulation. We have fur. We have feathers like this adorable baby owl. He does not need to sun himself on a log like the turtles need to do. And then we can sweat, right? We reduce our body temperature by sweating. So we have kind of gone over endothermy versus ectothermy, so I'm not going to go over it too much for you because we've kind of gone over this before, right? And the first land vertebrates were our ectotherms. But a question remains, when and how often endothermy evolved? Though modern reptiles are ectotherms, a great deal of evidence suggests that at least some dinosaurs were endotherms. Interesting thought. You don't tend to think of them that way, do you? I don't tend to think of them that way. And then we ended up with our feathered dinosaurs being our more recently evolved dinosaurs. So there's evidence that suggests that endothermy started evolving at some point, right? So now we're going to talk about our birds. What's this guy? Who knows? That's an emu. Isn't he cute? Do you want to pat him on the head? He'll probably peck you to death, but he's cute. What's up? No, that's a real emu.
Oh, my mom has a friend who runs an emu farm where people go for like their weddings.
Nice. I don't know that I'd get married amongst emus, but I'd go to visit them.
You?
Fun fact. Emu is the only bird who successfully won 2 wars against the government.
Explain that, I'm sorry.
That the Australian government declared war on emus.
Okay.
And lost.
And yeah, they lost. They've kind of lost the rabbit war too over there, but they keep trying. What's the other one?
That happened.
Very nice. Okay. So what do you think of when you think of defining characteristics of birds? Just shout them out. What are some things you think of? Wings, beaks, feathers. Yeah. What else do they do? What do they tend to do? Squawk.
Wow.
Most of them can fly, not all, but most of them fly, right? In order to fly, what do you suppose their internal structure needs to look like? Yeah. They say, yeah, hollow bones, lightweight skeletons. So yeah, 10,000 species of birds on this planet, roughly. That's a lot of birds. And they all belong to class Aves, which makes sense. Aviary is where you would keep a bird, right? And the biggest diversity is going to be in your tropical region, which is no surprise. If you've seen tropical birds before, they are highly diverse, highly varied, brightly colored, absolutely beautiful. They can communicate through different songs, vocal signals, visual signals, and some of them migrate. What's an example of a bird that migrates? What? Geese. Where are they going?
Not here.
Not here. Yeah, they're going south, right? They're trying to get warmer because it's warmer in the south part of the U.S. than it is in the north. How about hummingbirds? Are they here year round? No, they leave for the winter. They're starting to come back. In my bird groups on Facebook the other day, somebody said, I got my first hummer. And the hummers had returned. They will come back. Yeah, I'm in a bird group. I like my birds. People take pictures of cool birds. I've taken pictures of I took a picture of that big hawk I had during the snowstorm who sat on my branch for the longest time. Everybody was enamored with him. He was cool. So birds are defined by mostly what you said. Feathers, wings, lightweight rigid skeletons, endothermic metabolism, unique respiratory systems. They have a weird sort of one-way valve situation going on that's a little different from us, but it allows them to fly. And then their beaks, right? And oviparity, which means they have what? Eggs, right? So we have different means of flying. We can glide, and the birds that glide are tending to find the warmer pockets of air. Those pockets are less dense, which means that the more dense, cooler air is going down and pushing those lighter pockets up. Warm air doesn't rise. Cold air sinks and pushes warm air up because it has less density. Gravity is acting on the cooler, more dense air. And the byproduct of that is that the warmer air is moving up. It's not going up on its own, right? That's the force that's bringing it up. So the birds will get up there, and sometimes they call that riding the thermals. They will just float around. You've seen them probably. And this is really common with like hawks and falcons and things. They just kind of float around up there. That's soaring. Sorry, I was doing soaring, not gliding. That was soaring. Gliding is when you rely on simple physics. It's not a flat wing, it's a curved wing, right? And this is where you're using lift in general. So soaring is when you're catching the thermals, but you have to do some degree of gliding to get there. Gliding, so if you've looked at a wing before, it's shaped like so, right? It's not flat, it's shaped like so. And we've talked about what principle? Who remembers from physical science? Who's done physical science? What's the principle? We've got faster moving air on the bottom, slower moving air here, increased pressure because this faster moving air has decreased pressure. Drew? Bernoulli's principle. Bernoulli's principle gives us lift. Very good. Who else knew that? You knew it. You knew it. You knew it. Yes. Okay. My physical science people that know it. Yeah. All right. So it's Bernoulli's principle. So you've got the same volume of air moving here, but this air has to move faster to get over the curve. This air moves slower because it's under the curve. So therefore, this air is more dense because the particles are more spread out in the faster moving air. So it pushes up again, and that is lift. So that's how you get gliding. Then you get soaring on thermals where they're gliding, but they're also using the warmer air pockets to soar higher. And then flapping. You've seen flapping. Now, when you eat a chicken, who likes the white meat and who likes the dark meat? Let's see a vote for white meat. Who likes white meat? So, yep. And who likes dark meat? I like the dark meat. Okay, where do you find the dark meat in a chicken? What part of the chicken is the dark meat? You like to eat it, but do you know? Nope.
Is that like towards like the muscle area, like the wings and the
So your dark meat's gonna come from, the thighs. Yeah, chicken thighs, drumsticks, that's your dark meat. Okay, that is your regular, what we call slow twitch muscle. That's what you have for the most part, okay? Slow twitch muscle. It moves when you tell it to move. And it will eventually wear out if you do this too many times, right? If you run in place for too long, your muscles are gonna be like, I am done. I have twitched enough times and I cannot twitch anymore, I'm wearing out. Fast twitch muscle is what is in a bird's breast muscles. That's your white meat chicken. That's why it looks completely different. And fast twitch muscle is for quick movements and high endurance. A bird can flap and flap and flap. Have you seen a hummingbird move? Flap and flap and flap and flap and flap and flap. And they don't wear out. If a hummingbird got tired, think about how fast they're going. They would just fall out of the sky. But that white meat is fast twitch muscle. So it allows them to do that without wearing out. So it's high endurance, fast movement. So that is what allows for flapping in birds. And that's why when you eat a chicken or a turkey, you've got white meat and dark meat because it's a different type of muscle. So now we're going to watch this incredible owl do something that's pretty amazing. Okay, who has ever seen an owl in flight? Who has ever heard an owl in flight? Yeah. I was standing in my yard one morning and at my old house, I was standing there and I saw the shadow go by on the ground and I looked up and there was a barred owl above my head, 10 feet above my head, massive. Had I not seen the shadow, I would never have known she was there. Silent. So this is showing you, this guy has a sensitive array of microphones set up and he's sending different birds across. And you can see how very little sound. This is an incredible video. I may have shown it I might show it in physical science. I don't remember if I did or not. But anyway, oh, that's a fun commercial. Woo! Sliding. Okay. Thank you.
Okay. Bye.
That's a peregrine falcon. That's your best bird. Not a sound.
No, nothing at all. Absolutely quiet. Amazing.
But what have the microphones picked up? The decibel waveforms show the sound being generated by the birds in flight. Each spike is an individual wing beat. But with the barn owl, there's
That's
almost
wild. That's wild.
even our array of super sensitive microphones failed to pick up any sound of Kenza in flight.
The thing is, the owl doing exactly the same. Nothing at all. I'll play it again. There's not a sound here. That is really impressive, isn't it? It shows that they really are silent flyers.
So how does a barn owl fly so silently?
She's so pretty. She's a David Bowie labyrinth owl, you know? That's the same owl that's in Labyrinth.
When air moves, it generates sound. The more movement, the greater the sound. The pigeon's large body and small wings mean it can't stay airborne without a lot of fast flapping. This creates turbulence in the feathers below. The peregrine has much larger wings, which it uses to build up speed and chase down its prey. The barn owl is far more graceful.
Yeah. Look at that, though. They barely move. That's crazy.
Kenza's large wings and small body make it easier for her to generate lift. So just one gentle wing beat sees her gliding effortlessly through the air, creating little more than a whisper in the feathers below.
That's impressive. Very impressive, right? Very impressive. So we have lots of orders of birds, things you're familiar with, like falcons and parrots. A lot of the guys that you see outside are going to be in this passerine group. Those are the perching birds, the little ones that sit on the little twigs. Those are your perchers, right? So lots of different orders of birds, everything from ducks to penguins to things you've probably never heard of. If you don't mind language that's slightly rude, you should read the Field Guide to Dumb Birds of North America, and it tells you how stupid some, it's funny. Like, it doesn't call it a robin, it calls it a right. The whole book is full of stuff like that. But yes, many, many birds just where we are. And then look at all the orders. Some of them are not even on this continent. Many, many birds. So now we talk mammals. Now we get into some fun business here. So what do you think of as defining characteristics of animals? Everybody just kind of, what do you think? Live, young. Yeah, they walk, fur. Yeah. Mm-hmm. What else? Anything else?
Make sound brain.
Tend to make noises, communicate, vertebra, all this type of stuff. Okay, so yes. So class Mammalia has specialized traits. There are approximately 5,400 mammalian species, ranging from your tiny 1 to 2 inch bumblebee bat to a 108-foot blue whale. They are distributed in 29 orders, 153 families, and 1,200 genera. So lots of mammals. They are endothermic vertebrate animals that include the following characteristics: presence of hair or fur. Pretty much all mammals. Can you think of a mammal that doesn't have any hair or fur? Do you think anything else? Yeah, those naked mole rats, but they tend to even have a little fuzz from time to time, or whiskers. So they do have some kind. hairless cat. I pet a skinny pig over the weekend, a hairless guinea pig, and even they have like hair on their nose. So like even in those cases, there's some hair. Mammals tend to have sweat glands or sebaceous glands or both. Sebaceous glands produce oils. So like even though your dog doesn't sweat, your dog still has sebaceous glands. Glands that are specialized to produce milk or mammary glands. Middle ear bones. What were those before when you were an embryo?
Gills.
Yeah, pharyngeal slits, gills that, that at one point they're going to become gills in certain organisms like fish, and then in mammals, they're going to turn into your middle ear bones. A neocortex. Now, this is specific to mammals. This is your region of the brain that specializes in seeing and in hearing. So mammals are going to have a neocortex and specialized teeth, heterodontia. Heterodontia, different teeth. Carnivores are going to have one kind of teeth, herbivores another. Omnivores like us, we've got different types of teeth, right? 4 chambered hearts. All right, so when it comes to our orders of mammals, okay, we have 2 subclasses. We have Prototheria and Theriforms. Prototheria are those that do not have like any placenta at all. So these are our egg-laying mammals, of which there are only, we have Tachyglossa, which is echidna, 1 family and 4 species of echidna. That's an echidna, the little guy in the corner. Very cute, right? And then we have Platypoda, which is our platypus, 1 family, 1 species. That's it. We get into theriforms. These are our live bearing. Now we have Metatheria. These are our marsupials. Like I said, there's some argument about placenta. I wouldn't really consider they're having any sort of developed placenta. Their babies are born so super underdeveloped, which we're going to see in a few minutes, so super underdeveloped that, that's because they don't have the benefit of a placenta. And then Eutheria are placentals. So which are you? Which are we? Eutheria. We have placentas, right? I just said we can build organs as adult females. You can build a whole organ, right? And these are our many classes here. Lots of these guys in here. And some of these you probably know, rodents, primates, right? All right, this here is my single most favorite video to show students because it talks about just how weird marsupials are. This lady is going to talk about the reproductive strategies of the only marsupial of North America, which is the what? Virginia opossum. She's going to talk about their bizarre reproductive strategies, and she does it in the most serious, saccharine, sweet tone, and even gives you an adorable wink at the end of the video. And part of what makes it so good is her opening music just adds to the whole vibe of this video. Single most favorite video for students. I mean, if you're gonna, why not?
If I were to ask you to list a marsupial, I'm sure many of you would list representative species such as the wombat, the koala, or the kangaroo. However, if I were to ask you to list a representative species from the Americas, you might not be so quick to reply. Opossums are the only marsupials found in the Americas, and their reproductive strategies are much more complex than simply carrying their young in a pouch. The only species of opossum in North America is Didelphis virginiatus, the Virginia opossum. The order name Didelphimorphia can be broken down to mean 2 wombs, and this hints at the unique reproductive strategies of the opossum.
2 wombs.
Male opossums have a bifurcated or forked penis. This led people in the past to believe that the males would impregnate the females through the nose, and she would then sneeze them out into her pouch.
Hold on. Yes.
What?
Yes. Well, if okay. This is like when people thought if you put meat out, it will grow flies. Remember that? Remember we talked about that before, like spontaneous generation, that life comes from life. You can put a steak out and suddenly it will grow flies. That's because the steak makes flies. These people went, oh, penis looks like this, 2 holes. Oh, that's not No joke. I'm dead serious. Okay. I'm gonna let her go on from there now that you've absorbed that.
It will move from the oviducts to the uterus.
To
Then the embryo
uteri.
is nourished by uterine milk by means of diffusion. The trophoblastic cell layer prevents cells of the mother's immune system from reaching the embryo and seeing it as a foreign enemy. This is why marsupials have a relatively short gestation period in comparison to placental mammals. If the embryo were to remain, the mother's body would terminate the pregnancy. Due to this, an opossum's gestation period is usually only 12.5 days, with them being roughly the size of a honeybee at birth. They'll only have a torso, a head, and 2 front legs. So the opossum then has to climb from the mother's vaginal canal to the pouch. Blind and only having front legs to use, the 5 to 24 embryos rely on negative geotropism, which is a desire to go against gravity's pull. They also rely on the mother's salivary scent trail that she's laid from her vaginal canal to her pouch. Once in the pouch, the highly underdeveloped opossum will attach to one of 13 teeth. The number of teeth limits the number of opossums that will be able to survive. Attached to a teat, the opossum will begin to develop rapidly and stay connected to the mother for 8 to 9 weeks. The baby opossum will continue to nurse until around 4 months, when it will begin to fend for itself and eventually leave the mother. Although many people overlook our resident opossum, these complex marsupials represent an important step in the evolution of mammals. So maybe next time when you're driving late at night, please don't swerve to hit these fuzzy critters. For me.
Yeah, so this is wild. Okay. First off, you've got, so first off, you've got, right, the bifurcated penis thing, which is weird to us, right? We're not thinking about it that way, but a lot of marsupials are going to have that situation going on. And this is going to kind of explain why, because some marsupials and other organisms too, like there's this thing called embryonic diapause, okay? Where basically the organism can be pregnant at 2 different developmental stages because she has more than one uteri. So you'll have like a dual uterus situation going on. Kangaroos have, like, it's weird. The kangaroo system, they're going to explain this to you, but they have 3 vaginal canals, 1 opening and then 3 canals, right? One goes this way to this uterus, one goes this way to this uterus, and she can say, conditions aren't great. I'm going to pause the development of this embryo. And it's just going to basically be in suspended animation until I'm ready for it to keep developing. But I'm going to let this one grow. And then the 3rd canal is where the babies come back out. Wildest situation. So embryonic diapause is wild. And combining it with marsupials' unique reproductive system is even wilder. So this is a kangaroo reproductive system. For real. 1 opening, 3 vaginal canals, 2 uteri, completely unlike anything we're used to. So diapause is this. There are 130 mammal species that can do this to some degree. Some can only do it with their 1 offspring or 2 offspring in their 1 uterus. They can just kind of pause that 1 development. And that's embryonic diapause. Some are obligate at this, like armadillos have to. Armadillos will get inseminated and then go weeks before they allow a fertilization. And then they can go many even more weeks before they allow development of the embryo. It's pretty wild. So kangaroos really do have 3. Yep.
Protect your family's dreams.
It's the wildest thing ever.
American Family Insurance.
This is gonna blow your minds with this kangaroo business, man. Yeah.
That's not.
That is for giving birth.
Oh.
But wait.
Why are we over there?
Welcome to Now Leo Know, where curiosity roars loud. Did you know female kangaroos have not 1, not 2, but 3 vaginas?
Yay!
Sounds like a myth, right? It's 100% true. And trust me, the reason why will blow your mind. Most people think animals all have the same reproductive system basics. But marsupials, like kangaroos, they play by a completely different rule book. So how does it work? Why 3 vaginas? And how does this bizarre anatomy help baby kangaroos survive?
I don't know why they put it on there.
Stick around. This gets
Kinda
wildly
wrong.
weird. Let's start with a little marsupial 101. Kangaroos are part of the marsupial family, meaning their babies are born extremely small and continue developing inside a pouch. But the most jaw-dropping part, the internal setup that makes this whole process work. Inside a female kangaroo's reproductive system, there are 3 vaginas. The 2 side vaginas are used to carry sperm from the male to the uterus. The middle vagina is for giving birth.
Wow.
But wait, if that's not wild enough, kangaroo males have a forked, bifurcated penis to
Again.
match the 2 outer channels. Yeah, Mother Nature really said, let's make plumbing creative. This is an excellent biological unit. Kangaroo anatomy is strategically optimized for survival. Here's why. Female kangaroos are basically baby factories. They can be pregnant, nursing, and have a baby in the pouch all at the same time. The three vagina system allows them to carry multiple pregnancies at different stages. Even crazier,
Right?
they can pause the development of a fertilized embryo. This is called embryonic diapause. So if environmental conditions aren't right, or if they're already raising a joey, they hit pause. It's like nature's reproductive Netflix. Are you Let's zoom in on the baby kangaroo, the joey. When it's born, it's the size of a jelly bean. It crawls up the mother's body and latches onto a nipple inside the pouch where it continues developing.
It never lets go,
Thanks to
by the way.
three vaginas.
Permanently
While
attached.
one joey is in the pouch, another could be waiting in line, and a third embryo could be paused. It's like a joey assembly line in full swing. And get this,
It's wild.
Female kangaroos can even produce 2 types of milk at once from different nipples, each tailored to the joey's stage of life. So how did kangaroos end up with this unusual setup? It's all about evolutionary advantage. Australia's environment can be harsh, long droughts, unpredictable seasons. So kangaroos evolved to be incredibly efficient reproducers. If one baby doesn't survive, the mom has a backup ready to go. And the structure keeps everything flowing. Literally. There's less downtime between pregnancies and higher chances of species survival. Humans, we've got one uterus, one pregnancy at a time. Kangaroos, they've got a baby-making super.
Yes, his foot.
Here's some quick facts that make kangaroos even more legendary. They can travel up to 40 miles per hour, but can't walk backward. Their pouches are self-cleaning, kind of like a womb with a zipper. And despite all this magic, kangaroos can still be pests in parts of Australia due to overpopulation. But no matter how common they might be down under, their biology is anything but ordinary. So, next time you see a kangaroo, remember, you're looking at one of evolution's strangest success stories. 3 vaginas, delayed pregnancy, and milk on demand. Kangaroos are built different. Literally. Want more wild animal science facts? Wait, what?
I know.
Pretty wild. Did anybody know that before you came here today? Did anybody know that we've got a 3 vagina situation in a kangaroo that can pause their baby's development? It is wild. It is really wild. Like, we don't think about it because we just think about how we do things, and that's not it. All right, yes.
Is it like a conscious decision?
No, it's not even conscious. Like, she doesn't even have the higher brain function. It's all like instinctual, just sort of biomechanical functioning. It's pretty wild.
Next.
So what's a response? Yes.
A specific reaction.
A specific reaction to a stimulus. And what are 3 main kinds of skeletal systems? Drew said it before, Caitlin.
Endo, exo, and hydrostatic.
Yes, endo, exo. Oh, I skipped that one. I'm sorry, but yes. The other one, body systems interact to produce behavior on response of body systems involved are sense organs, nervous systems, muscles. What does an Idarian's hydrostatic skeleton consist of? Caitlin again.
Fluids held in gastrovascular.
Yeah, gastrovascular cavity or coelom. Yep. And corals have a skeleton composed of the calcium, so they're a little different in that grouping. But yeah. And what's chitin again? We've talked about chitin a zillion times. Eunice. Yes. So it's your fibrous structure that is going to compose your exoskeleton, arthropod, and your cell walls of fungi. And which invertebrates have endoskeletons? Let's do Eunice. Oh, Claire. Okay, it's a good one. There you go. So arthropods and some mollusks are going to have endoskeletons. Okay, now let's see. We have respiratory, circulatory, and digestive over here, which are some of your main body systems. Now, this is probably my second favorite video to show students. Okay, what is this?
The koala.
Okay, all right. So, where does that live? Australia. So, aren't they cute? Are they nice?
No.
Are they cuddly?
No.
Oh, doesn't he look cuddly?
Her name translates to
Okay.
poking him.
Do y'all know that they almost all have chlamydia? Almost every koala bear you're ever going to see, koala have a koala bear. Koala is going to have chlamydia. They all have sexually transmitted disease. They're just passing around. That's what they do. Yeah. So this shows how kind and gentle one koala can be to another koala.
They'll come down like.
This guy looks like a real life human toddler, and it's just it's too much.
They would come down like they land was next to like choke them out.
Mm-hmm.
Why are you so close to
It's like an animatronic. There's no way that's real. There's no way.
Right?
That's real.
Now look at the guy in the tree. Him.
It's like an animatronic.
Trying to invite him to another tree.
You look like an animatronic.
He's telling him there's plenty of trees. And this is great. She calls him out. You're a meanie. Oh, he tried again. You're gonna give it another shot. Oh, that's friendly. Gee. Leave his hands like a toddler. Poor guy. Poor thing. Like I don't know whether to laugh or cry. Cute animals are not always nice.
What is that?
I don't even know. Oh, there he goes again. So I will put on one other thing in the background while you're getting yourselves out of here for today. But yeah, that's fun, right?
Eyes like move in. It's weird.
I do have
So robotic.
I do have a it's the oh gosh, why is this not going? Hang on. I do have the top 20 weirdest mammals that I'll put on in the background that you can watch as you're heading out. But yeah. I feel bad for him. I mean, it's very sad, but it's like, dude, what happened to you?
That looks like the nice one, dude.
Yeah.
This
Yes.
like
Yes. Very sweet.
First month free. Deal ends March 13th.
There's some weird ones in here.
it's
The strangest looking mammals. The mammal class is full of strange creatures. Animals are
Add to
very
the collection.
never seen before.
It's a birthday class this week.
Yeah.
And we learned that strokes or heart attacks feel different in men versus women.
Yeah, totally. Yeah. I think
Our instructor was like,
I don't really know if anybody knows why. I think it has to do with like just body mass and I'm not really sure. But yeah, they do hit us differently. So we have more arm pain and less of the. It was weird. It is very weird.
But also they're
Thanks for bringing that. Never mind.
This is.
Feel mine over there?
It's what the call my.
instead much lesser than
Chicken sounds exactly like. No, I wouldn't have figured that one out. It wasn't even on my radar. I'm thinking local, you know, they're not local. We saw them all over Arizona.
Riding a spray place called Lady of the Sea, and is also known as you see this picture of that is a big box, and the way it's colored is so you see it's well.
Oh, yeah.
Honestly, it's not wild. It is the only species. It's golden tall.
They have like show that definitely comes.
Living in Brazil. And
Yeah.
adults weigh up to 23 meters. Height such as at this height, they are the tallest in the family of canids, which include other animals such as horses, foxes, jaguars, dingoes, and Number 17, the Irrawaddy dolphin. This beautiful fellow is an Irrawaddy dolphin. Yes, it's not the tallest one you are used to seeing. They do look a bit like believers. The Irrawaddy is a creature all unto its own. Their blowholes are closer to their left side, leaning towards the left. An adult Irrawaddy can weigh up to 200 kilograms, and the largest size ever recorded was a male found in the island that measured 2.75 meters. What's the most interesting about the Irrawaddies probably very much how they are and fishers who drive the fish into their nets when tapping with those. Number 16, the lesser mouse deer. Also known as the Malay shepherd crab, this tiny mammal often confuses those who come across it. Is it a mouse or is it a gator? Actually, the lesser mouse deer is much more associated with kids, despite their appearance on studies, but they just don't have any way. When it comes to the Asian species of mouse deer, adults will grow up to study these labs, while the African species are usually at anywhere between 15 all the way up to 35 years.
I wanted the word cuppa as a cup of tea. I thought would be great to mix with pub. When I saw that the name was available, I was like, I'm taking it, I'm trademarking it, I'm going with it. Hi, I'm Aaron, I'm the owner of Cuppa Pub. We're not a traditional cafe. When I saw Cuppa Pub go live, that's when it all started. Nice.
Experience next level of parking living at Portland. With state-of-the-art amenities, resident first service, and elevated wellness offerings, you'll be sure to discover a home where you don't just live, but thrive.
They can be found in regions such as West and Central Africa. Number 15. These huge rodents are also called river rats or ikoiku, depending on where you're from. Adults can weigh up to 14 pounds, so anyone with a deep phobia when it comes to rodents should probably steer clear of this one. The nutria are semi-aquatic rodents that can be found in North and South America, Europe, Africa, and Asia. However, they are only native to South America. They are known for looking like beavers or muskrats, characterized mostly by their orange. The largest adults weigh around 16 to 17 kilograms and measure 45 centimeters. Number 14, star-nosed mole. Though most people do know what a star-nosed mole looks like, it's still strange to see them up close. Though they seem terrifying, these species of moles are actually quite small. Their strange noses are what are known as Eimer's organs, and is the star-nosed mole's touch organ that consists of over 25,000 sensory receptors. What's cooler is that their fur is water repellent, and their tails serve as the storage for breeding season. These wetland inhabiting animals are usually found in parts of the United States and Canada. Number 13, the elephant are also insectivorous mammals and are named such for their they come in sizes that range from 10 to 30 centimeters. Unlike a lot of mammals, but quite similar to humans, the female elephants present signs of going through a menstrual cycle. The period that actually will be and just because they're small, they will be able to catch sight of one, catch one so easily. The elephant shrew is known to be one of the fastest. Number 12, giant squirrel. It's like the regular squirrel's longer in front of their name. This type of squirrel is native to their behavior with showers and predators like large birds, celebrities going out to them. And they also the Eastern giant squirrel and big spirits such as and seeds, which makes it one of the most significant species of the
Yeah, I'll have to let you know.
Expressive animals in the world. The Pallas's cat is a small wild cat that closely resembles what most of us see as domestic. And that's probably because Pallas's cat and a regular domestic cat are similar in size. Though their legs are a little shorter than wild cats, they have here sounder. They can be found in grasses in steppes in Central Asia and are named after the Sunda-flying beaver found in Egypt's Sunda Malaysia. They measure up to 40 centimeters. Once a Sunda-flying beaver falls to the ground, it is helpless as its physique is not built for that. They mostly eat leaves and tree bark to drink. Number 9. Face. This bat is hairless, though that's not the physical feature it has no food. You can be sure bats have hair. Since the nipples are started in cases of the but don't be alarmed at this. They may look more Dracula than other bats, but they are more considerate. Number 8. These terrestrial mammals and these are the kinds of animals that build up. Number 7. Having further south common amphitheater family members with shorter snout and people are used to seeing them as that. They're the Number 6. This is one creature whose appearance is huge. Sunday, the platypus is subdominant and mouth that closely resembles that of a bird. Mammal. Not consistent. They are about ducks. In fact, if they really have feathers, Western scientists, people like to debate together from bird to they even lay eggs, unlike most mammals, and are endemic to East Australia. Number 5. Rabbit. They are the oldest type of domestic rabbit. And there's a survey. Before a rabbit is ready, since they want to know that way I know how many huge little lots. And some of them are gonna go back to the freezer, obviously. So number 4. These nocturnal rodents are adored for their small stature and huge ears. They also have long hind legs. Found in these paler black zones, they're about 5 times long, or about a You'll see how they do. Don't be too excited about how horrible or curious. They have big white. I usually do well too. I teach it like actually most of them have not survived. So checking, hoping they do well. And we know some other things. The low bed stretch and record not only know. Which is known as the stridulation, where they let parts of the bodies together to make a sound. And it's something that can be done by snakes and other insects. These mammals are found solely on the island of Madagascar and are active both during the day and night. Number 2, East common two-nosed bat. Bats are already a strange sight to see, both at a distance and when they're swarmed together or even close up. The eastern two-nosed bat is a native to northeastern Australia and are exceptionally well known for their unique physical characteristics. First, it's their tube nose that makes them stand out from other bats, along with their brown, protruding eyes and yellow spots all over their fur. Number 1, penguin. The scales that adorn the penguin are called keratin scales, as they're made of the same stuff as human nails, and they're the only mammals to have such a thing on their bodies. Their scales are rather soft when they're first born, but hard unless they reach about head. Penguins are insectivorous. And then you're looking for like the nocturnal there's an embryo there, and it's not just
An unfertilized egg. I think that's what this was that arrived because I just ordered it. Last night, I thought that one wasn't working great.
Wow, Allie.
Let me turn that off. Bye bye. You heading out? All right. Let's see. Here we go.